this past weekend, UFC, the stock of Paddy Pimblett took a battering in the last week, like
plummeted.
And you know, I'm very friendly with this guy. I wouldn't say I'm his best friend or anything, but I had him on my show pre-UFC, and he went up against Ariel Helwani.
Dangerous game to play.
Yeah, to be fair, it went worse for him against Ariel Helwani than it did for him in the octagon against that Jared. So let's take on the Ariel Helwani situation first, because I have something in common with Ariel Helwani. I had Paddy on my show pre-UFC, and then when he got into the UFC, I was also told by his manager, it's going to cost you if you want him back on. So that was quite interesting. And I did make a few notes because I don't want to fuck this up. I remember watching Ariel, I think like 2008. Like, that's how far back Ariel's been doing this. So I got to give it up to him. I do have respect for him. He took Paddy apart in very easy fashion because Paddy is not as skilled with his words as what Ariel is. Ariel has, it's like Paddy and Ariel rolling jiu-jitsu, you know, like it wouldn't be fair. And it's the same with Ariel. And, but I think the broad point that Paddy made, that Ariel makes money off of fighters, has some weight to it. And I think that the way Ariel sort of took it as a very literal thing of, well, I don't get paid for YouTube views. It's like, well, the company who pays your contract, they literally budget based on what views you're going to bring to them. And the reason Ariel's built his star up over a decade or more even is through having the star power rub off on him from fighters and from all of those appearances. And it all factors in when you're budgeting to have Ariel Helwani sign a contract with you. So to say he doesn't make any money off of fighters, you know, it's like, okay, you don't have your own YouTube channel, but the YouTube channel you work for literally does make money off of sponsors and views, and they get that from your interviews. So I felt like he was slightly disingenuous in the way he explained it. He made it out like he was some sort of 1980s newspaper journalist, and that's not what he is. He is slightly an entertainer, and he is on YouTube, and you know. So I just wanted to start off by saying that.
I was going to say, like what Ariel does well is, and it was what's made him into, I guess, what you would call a star as an MMA journalist, is he's been able to blend a combination of breaking news stories, real hard-hitting journalism, things that the UFC, I mean, you've seen why they don't like him. He blew up the Brock Lesnar story. And again, that was one that like, he gets a bad rap for that. He was doing exactly what he was supposed to do there. Yeah. And the UFC supposedly had this hit, like, don't say it, don't. He didn't know. He went and did his job. So
a journalist is supposed to challenge authority, and Ariel's done that well.
Many times. Many times. And he has that option even now. He can still do that, and he still does that. He still is the major news breaking source in MMA.
However,
happens.
Sorry to interrupt you, Wade. What I will say is he hasn't quite challenged, let's say, Conor McGregor in the same way. When he's been sat in front of Conor McGregor, who has a whole host of things you could rip him to shreds on, Ariel has been very careful in those interviews, and sometimes it's not been great interviews because he's been so careful. And the reason he's been so careful is because he doesn't want to fuck up the money. Now, he plays a very clever game in the way he's gone at Dana as our sort of Robin Hood, but it ain't always that way, you know. And I think that there's been opportunities missed by Ariel where he's been sat in front of fighters who he could have taken apart, you know. And I don't want to criticize him because I have so much respect for him, but I think just the way he laid it out was for maximum damage against Paddy. Because he was so upset by what was said. And I think,
was going to say,
and I get that he's upset because Paddy spoke about him in a really bad way, and I don't think that was right. But what I want to do is sort of bring a little bit more of a level-headed and realistic approach to this, because we're not involved, so it's easier. You know. It
was easy for Ariel to slam dunk on Paddy.
Absolutely.
It was very easy. Like, Paddy made it easier by just saying the things he said, but you are right. Ariel did approach this as an emotional guy to a degree, right? And this is something I didn't bring up in my video, and I probably should have. You look at Ariel as a guy that is an unbiased journalist, but he's still a human being, right? He is still a guy with feelings and a guy that maybe sometimes wears those on his sleeve a little.
Which I like.
That's what happened here. No, you should be. Like you said, he's a content creator as well, right? He's still going to offer opinions. Now, where that line is met to where he is overstepping it and saying things that are maybe not in school, like you shouldn't be saying, some of the things that Paddy kind of opened the door for, though. Yeah, so it's like you kind of just you have to put out the truth. But Ariel could have approached this, and to be fair, I think did for a long time as a way of being like, listen, I'm not going to say this. I have all this info. We're not going to bring it out. But the fighter pay issue, like him coming on the show, all that, Ariel said it himself. I just saw something I do. Other people can do that. But the way Ariel read into it, with the manager saying, oh, let's do something, you're going to have to pay, get your budget. And Ariel being so offended is that emotional side of it, right?
Yeah, that's the point.
Ridiculously,
I think a lot of people are sort of missing that because Paddy was so reckless. It's easy to blame Paddy for this, but I just wanted to dissect it a bit deeper because just because Ariel does make money off of fighters, and I have made many pounds off of fighters, I am completely admitting that I do this as also, but they benefit from it too, because what an Ariel Helwani is there to do is help a fighter tell his story better than he can. And that's why he deserves compensated for this. So at no point am I saying that Ariel is doing fighters over. And I think that for Paddy to sit there in front of Dana White and accuse him of that was out of order. And I think what Ariel has created...
and saying it is hilarious.
Yeah, of all people. To say it to the guy who's literally the American Tory. But I think what Ariel has created and what other podcasters have created or interviewers is like, especially Ariel, is an ecosystem where Ariel interviews the Conor McGregors, the big boys, but he also interviews the small fighters, and that trickle down is benefiting the whole community of MMA. So to say he's purely there to suck and take from it and not give anything back, I think is really unfair on Ariel. So just to break down some of the other things that were said by these guys, Paddy saying Ariel wanted me to do a free interview instead of a paid interview that my manager had lined up. I think that's a very convenient, way to put it, to try and deflect from the asking for money for the interview.
Yep. That's exactly what it is. Ariel came out and said, he's like, I didn't say you couldn't go do another interview. Like, I don't control what you do.
Just fit me in as well for free if you can. Like,
that's not going to be what we do here.
The manager of Paddy, Graham, incredibly short-sighted. Because what they've tried to do now is they've gone, no, we weren't asking Ariel for money. We were just asking if he could ask BT for money. And I'm like, I asked for an interview from you at the same time. I'm not employed by BT, and you asked me for money as well. So that's bullshit. That is flat out bullshit from Paddy's manager. And this guy, I know people who know of him, and look, he's clearly done certain things of worth in his career, but I get that he's there to make money for Paddy, but when you're also getting a percentage of that money, you may make decisions that aren't worth hurting your fighter's reputation for an extra few quid if you've got that small time mentality. And this was small time from me.
This turned into a way bigger thing than it should have been. And what happens now is, and again, you're right, Graham, deciding to, I guess, use this as the platform he wanted to go at Ariel, right? You don't go at the big guy. Like, you can, even going at you, like, you're going to start to build a reputation for people that don't want to work with you. And Paddy is now, unfortunately, kind of receiving that same hate that really he is just writing for his manager, right? Like, Paddy is hearing a lot of things in his ear, and his manager obviously is the guy that knows more about this stuff. And even Ariel even said it when he reached out. He goes, hey, I let Graham do a lot of that stuff now. Like, I don't know how all this works. I just let him do it, and then whatever he says, I do. So it's obviously Paddy listening to somebody. Graham probably is the guy, and it's like,
and that's why I feel like Paddy got a little too much heat this week. I feel like really it's the guy behind Paddy who should be taking more of the flack. And instead,
think about it. How many fighters know how to navigate this space? How many guys know where I should be, how I should be doing it? When, like, not a lot. Conor is probably the only one. No, should they be?
Somebody should be doing that for them, but they should just be good at it.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Graham's probably very good at his job, but again, you pick your battles here. You don't go and, try to big league Ariel Helwani
Yeah.
And then when it all hits the fan, Paddy's the one that's trying to ride for his manager. His manager just threw his hands up. He didn't say anything. And then
did you see that? Did you see that Instagram video?
Yeah.
Bro,
Yeah.
Managers are usually very good at speaking. This was a fucking shambles of a video, right? So, but what I will say, the only thing I could say against Ariel outside of the incorrect point he made about not making money off of fighters was when he got emotional in the DMs and took issue with being charged. I thought, if you just leave this here and you go, okay, fair enough, you want to charge, I'm not going to pay, fair enough, I'll see you later. If he just left it at that and didn't start getting a little bit aggressive in those DMs and then goes on the Pat McAfee show and blatantly indirects Paddy, I feel like Ariel has not conceded that he could have handled that bit better yet.
Yeah,
and
that's fair.
That to me, when you know you've got a young lad from Liverpool who doesn't play politics, who is just going to speak his mind, you're saying, well, I never said your name. It's like, bro, he knows you're talking about him, though.
Exactly.
Come on now. And I do think Ariel, as the wiser guy in this situation, who's an older journalist who's been around, just could have just not. If Ariel doesn't say anything there in that moment, none of this happens, by the way. That's it, dead. So I do think Ariel has sort of, and I get it. When someone comes after you, you're not going to concede anything. But for us, I think we can say he could have just not, exploded.
He could have handled that better. Going on Pat McAfee's show and doing that. Granted, 99% of people would have had no idea what he was talking about. But the people that mattered and the reason this thing blew up did. Because as soon as that happened, Graham gets on Instagram, writes that long message about how fighters could get paid. And that's where people made the connection. Now, what Ariel, and this is not me defending Ariel, it's just me watching him over the last couple of years. Ariel, for years, we've watched him. He was a background, quiet guy, never talked about like the beef between him and other people. And then when that Dana thing happened, it switched very quickly, right? Like you saw him get emotional, the whole thing. But now he is Helwani. He's coming for skulls, man. He buried Brendan Schaub, buried him, like 10-7 him over something that, again, didn't really need to be said between either of them. But Ariel was really adamant about taking like umbrage with what he said and making sure everyone knew it. It seems like that's the way Ariel's going to handle things. And it is fairly emotional in some cases. And I think this was one of those cases where I don't know where he got offended so much by. Was it the fact that he was asked to pay or? Yeah,
I've got all respect for Ariel defending himself. But when you're all about the truth, when you're all about the truth and Ariel is generally that way inclined, you have to reflect that on yourself and your own behavior. And I just think he could have taken a little more accountability than he did. And And that's all I'm saying. Like, at the end of the day, the things Paddy said were completely out of order. What Dana said were out of order. And it's easy for me to say Ariel could have been a little less emotional, but it's not me they're talking about. And I understand he was pissed.
Yeah. And you are right, though. If it's between Ariel and, a younger fighter that really probably doesn't know how to navigate this space, in that moment, Ariel could have and probably should have said, you know what, this is silly. I don't need to go public and say some stuff like this. And then it never, like you said, it never would have happened. They would have still had beef between them, whatever, but it never would have been this. They could have easily walked this back.
Yeah, like when I got the message from my guy saying, oh, they've asked for money, I just went, we'll leave it then.
Exactly,
And that was it. Dead. Nothing came of it. You know what I mean? Because I get it. Like, Paddy's a young guy from Liverpool, and they don't know how long this is going to last. So they might be trying to get as much cash in while they can before this shit blows or whatever.
And fair play to him.
I understand that. And as a man, how am I going to have a problem with another guy for trying to make as much money as he can in that event? So I see both sides. Yeah. And I think... But I get Ariel's broader point about, as a business, a journalist, if they had to pay for every single fucking interview they did, that would kill the business. So on a broader level, what Ariel, although he's taken it very personally, I think what he's fighting for is the right thing, which is we shouldn't have to pay for interviews. Just don't do the interview if you don't want to do the interview. You know what I mean?
Right. No, Ariel's correct by saying what he said. And then not only the payment, killing the business in a financial sake, but also in an integrity stake where Ariel, yes, he has interviews with guys like Connor where you want to see him push the envelope a little more, but it eliminates it completely when you're buying interviews, because at that point, you're not buying just the interview. You're buying the questions you ask, you're buying the responses you get, you're buying the time of that individual. So it becomes a pattern of, oh, okay, I know what's going on here. Here comes the softball question. I'm very comfortable with this guy. So that's exactly what happens.
He literally got paid to do gigs with Conor McGregor on stage, remember, where he did that tour? So, like, Ariel's taken money to be the interviewer before, by the way. I doubt he did that for free. Maybe he did, fair enough.